Welcome everyone for yet another YouTube live on the brain science and the memory power. I'm all excited for this amazing live YouTube session. I welcome each and every one of you, those of you who are tuning in live. So welcome to this YouTube live. And today we are going to explore about the science of this brain, right? Because this is a wonderful fascination that I actually developed when I was in my 8th standard, right? Because we know that we create so many things from the pin to rocket, right? But all this actually created by this one single gadget called as the brain, right? And I got introduced to this particular amazing topic of understanding deeper with multiple amazing mentors. And then I started understanding this is so powerful, this is so interesting, and this is very important that I actually develop the knowledge and the experience in this particular level. And today we are going to decode a lot of things on this particular brain science, and also about the memory power that is going to help you in your academics, right? Those of you watching it who are out of your academical activities and you are in a corporate world or you are in a startup world, absolutely, we all need memory, right? So we need that particular thing, and that's exactly how it takes it forward to that next level. And those of you who are joining in for the first time to this YouTube live, so and you are part of this particular YouTube community for the first time, please do click on that subscribe button and also give a like button if you like this particular content. So let's get started, guys, with this YouTube live. So today we are going to discover about some of the very important fundamentals about the brain, because when I started understanding this, because you can know swimming, right, without even knowing the molecular structure of water. That's one level. But how about you actually understand the science behind that? Because today we understand gravity. Today we actually understand the space. Today we understand various different things, but it's always very interesting to understand how our own brain works. Because once you actually understand that, like, it is something like you having to know better about your car features. Like once you actually have the car, you cannot take the maximum productivity of that car unless and until you know all the various different aspects of it. It is the same thing is true with your mobile phone, right? So if you just know one or two apps and you start utilizing it, that's good for usability point of view, that is good for survival point of view. But if you really want to take the best out of the productivity, it's better to know ins and out of that. Similarly, when it comes to our brain, we need to understand a couple of aspects of this. And my initial introduction, as I shared in the beginning, started happening when I was in 8th standard. So I actually went through a mentor. His name is actually called as Biswarup Roy Chaudhary. So he was an amazing mentor. He has multiple Guinness World Record holdings, specifically in the area of memory, right? And specifically in the area of the ability of having the brain power. But he actually always shared this, and in all his mentorship sessions, is that it's all about the science, right? Like for example, right now we know that to launch a rocket there is a science. Similarly, to accelerate our brain capabilities to the next level, it's a science. But we need to understand, when we are actually going through exams, right, we actually go through a lot of emotions like fear, anxiety, stress, right, tension, all of these particular things. And that is actually something happening inside our brain. Because if you see our brain, it can be divided into two hemispheres, left side brain, right side brain. But again, as the brain, there are three layers. The topmost layer is called as cortex. That is where the neuronal connections, you might have learned this in biology, right? There is something called as neurons, dendrites, through which the neural pathways are created. For example, you are watching this YouTube live. New neuronal paths are actually getting created in the cortex. That's the first layer of our brain. The second layer of our brain is called as limbic system. That is where this feeling aspect actually starts coming. Have you observed this? For certain times, suddenly an exam date is announced, you start feeling certain things like anxiety, stress and tension and all of that. Or tomorrow if there is an exam, you feel so much stress. That is actually happening in the limbic brain. That is the inside part. But the outside part is where you start developing new experience. Like let's consider you learn a new skill. Where that is actually happening, that's actually happening in the cortex. But the feeling part is happening in the limbic brain. But there is something called at the back of our brain, it's called as reptilian brain. Because of that, we make decisions. Like for example, heart rate. You are not controlling, I'm not controlling my heart, right? So it's the reptilian brain that is actually creating that function. Today our kidneys are working, right? Liver, various different systems are there. This is so much awesome. The creator is so awesome that there are certain systems that has actually been there in our system, managed by our brain already, right? And that's the power, because if you see this, our brain, it's actually the 20% of our entire body, but it consumes 80% of the power. And it is so important that we know how do we increase the efficiency of this brain. And today in this brain science session, we're going to understand the aspects of chemical compositions, because our brain goes through, because we are a chemical soup. So that's the fact, right? We are going through a lot of chemicals, and we have positive chemicals and we have negative chemicals that actually affects our body. There are positive empowering chemicals that actually takes our life to a completely different level. Let's understand that one after other. And a quick disclaimer, as I actually shared this particular thing in every session here, right? The reason why we do this is because this is field of interest. This is a field to actually crack in, make things happen, understand, take things forward to the next level. So I'm not a doctor by profession, I'm an engineer by profession, I'm not a brain scientist. But the thing is that this is my fascination. I love reading books, I love going through a lot of things, and these are some of the research work that what I've done to understand, right, what goes behind this brain science and how do we increase that brain performance. I'm a geek towards increasing the brain performance and see how we can take things forward to that next level. So let's understand the first chemical that actually been produced. We can also call it as a hormone that gets produced in our brain. It's actually called as the reward center, reward hormone. It's called as dopamine. Today, if you actually see, all the social media companies are giving you that dopamine kick. Whenever you actually scroll through the Instagram, whenever you actually go through certain videos, you complete that. The sense of completion and you going to that next level is when this dopamine is released. And today, Instagram is doing that every 30 seconds, right? People are losing focus span. But dopamine can be utilized in the positive way, in a negative way, and in a neutral way, right? But if you actually see today, specifically with respect to alcohol, drugs, right, drinks or cigars, so everything also releases a form of dopamine in our brain. Or have you experienced this? You actually complete a assignment or a notes, you write finishing something, feel the sense of achievement at that time. That's a dopamine release. You feel that you complete a task, you tick mark that and say this is done. That's a dopamine kick. But the thing is that you can use that for positive work. You can use that as a consequence to negativity, right? You actually go on binge watching series, right? So what is that actually happening? It's actually a chemical kick that what you are getting in the limbic brain, because that's a feeling brain which is there inside your brain that goes through a lot of chemical composition. I want you to try this. Can you try being happy right now? You don't. Do you know why? The reason why, in this beautiful book that she shares, habits of happy brain. So she shares that our cortex is where it creates experience, and limbic brain is where this chemical compositions are happening. And chemical compositions what are happening in our brain doesn't have a language of its own. It has to feel. We say that I don't feel like this, I don't feel like that, or today I feel so happy. The reason is because of that. But the question is, do you let chemicals to control your life, or you control your brain? That's what it means. You are a master of your brain, or you are a slave of your brain. Your brain says I feel this and you start doing that. Your brain says I feel that and you start doing that. Then you are becoming a slave to your own brain. You are becoming a slave to your own chemicals. But human beings are much more powerful than that, right? There is something more intelligent than brain in our system. Do you know what is creating this brain? What is creating this brain is a bigger intelligence than this brain intelligence, and that is consciousness. Whoever actually exercises that consciousness actually have power and mastery towards this brain. Whoever actually goes just with today I feel like going through social media, I feel like doing this, I feel like doing that, they are slaves to their own brain. They are slaves to their own chemicals like dopamine, right? But if you are conscious, okay, I'm going to finish task, I'm going to use this for productivity, I'm going to use this to increase the activity strength that actually empowers me and grows me in my life, then you are doing that for the betterment, right? You can use your brain for good. It's like a knife. Brain on its own is not good bad. It's like a knife. With knife you can save a life, with knife you can kill a life, with knife you can do average things. That's how this brain is all about. So how do we use this dopamine for the positive benefit? Simple steps that what you can do. One of the very important things that what I do in my life is having a productivity system. So I make sure that every single day, whatever that I'm doing, I make sure that this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done. This gives you a consistent dopamine kicks, which is helping me to grow forward in my life. Like, let's consider I'm actually doing a YouTube live. So the type of content that what I'm actually creating is going to stay here for a longer period of time. So that is actually productive for me and also valuable for other people, right? Are you creating the dopamine activity that is productive to you and valuable for others, right? That's a very, very important question to ask. The second important chemicals that actually goes in our limbic brain, it's actually called as oxytocin. What is it called as? Oxytocin. Oxytocin is also called as a trust hormone, right? It's a hormone that gets released when you are with people, and we all crave for oxytocin. And when there is a lack of oxytocin, it will be very hard for you to connect with people heart to heart. And that's actually a hormone that gets released in our brain, which actually creates that bonding. And I usually suggest this works very well for so many people. What is it? It's community, right? When you are around community of people who are taking massive actions, and you be around them, you also want to take as many massive actions as possible, because there is a wonderful saying that you will become the average of 5 people you surround yourself with most of the time, right? How can you actually be around very highly productive people? If you see a lot of events that actually happen all across the world today, right? So what people do, people actually get into these types of events to actually get that oxytocin kick, right? So it's very, very important that we actually understand the positive side of oxytocin. But what is the negative side of oxytocin? Oxytocin can be very addictive, right? Which means that once you get addicted to people, have you experienced this? You cannot get disassociated or disattached with people. You feel lonely too soon. The reason is because you have that kick of getting oxytocin. So that is where it's very important you bring in that balance, when to have oxytocin, when not to have oxytocin, when to have dopamine. See, if you actually get into the kick of dopamine doing more tasks, the body gets exhausted. So you need to know the right balance. So that's what it was all about, understanding the brain science. The third important hormone that gets released in our brain is called as serotonin. This is actually a hormone that gets released when you feel respected by others, right? When you feel that other people are respecting you for your work, when you are getting recognized, not rewarded for your work, but recognized in front of so many people for your work. It's a leadership hormone, right? But it can be actually done for the positive way. Think about it, right? Like, if you actually see people who are doing great work, right, they get recognized, they get rewarded. It's the serotonin that is actually giving that particular kick for them to actually growing forward. But can we sustain these hormones? That is where consistent effort takes in making things happen. The fourth one that is actually called as pain masking hormone, it's called as endorphin. Have you experienced this? When you actually go to a gym, right, that time you doesn't feel any pain, or you actually do a function, you do a lot of activities that day, no pain. It's called as pain masking hormone. It will be masking the pain at that moment, so that it gives that rush and kick for you to do so many things. But the next day and next 2 days you will have that effect, right? Because endorphin levels in your system gets reduced and the pain starts coming in, right? So same thing in our life, we can use endorphin for positivity, right? Because without endorphin, if let's consider you are actually lifting muscles, at that time only, if it is too much of paining, then you will not lift the pain, you will not break the muscles, then you cannot grow yourself, right? So when you are actually growing, that going with uncomfort zone, right, is really, really hard at that time. But you need to actually be okay to release endorphin, get through that, push through that, make it happen. And you might have that consequences next 1 or 2 days. You need to be comfortable with uncomfortness, right? That is very, very important to take it forward. Then the last type of an hormone that what we release very harmful for the system is called as cortisol, right? Cortisol is the main reason for a lot of diseases today that people actually create within themselves, right? Like, it's actually self-created diseases, right? That is actually happening because of cortisol. It's a stress hormone. Cortisol is also called as a stress hormone or an anxiety hormone. People release that particular thing when they get stressed, when they get angry, when they get sad, when they get all these negative emotions. Cortisol is getting released right? And our neural pathways get burned during that time, and that is where it is very, very important to increase that. Lot of activities one must go through, right, in order to build a balance, because you understand that much of your life is not in your control, it's in your chemicals control, but you can get that control only through that consciousness. Can you empower your consciousness more? Can you bring consciousness is already there, but can we get ourselves aware to that consciousness? That is so, so important, because with that awareness itself, it's so empowering, right? That actually helps you build that bigger intelligence than this brain intelligence. Because usually for men the intelligence is here, for women the intelligence is the entire body for them, right? So there is also another level of intelligence that is shared, is gut feeling. Like there is something called as gut, that what we all have, right? What your gut says. So the higher intelligence is our consciousness, then the gut intelligence and the brain intelligence and all of that. So it's very important that we actually effectively utilize this to navigate through this life and thrive and grow forward in this life, right? So now I'm actually going to share with you a couple of very important aspects that what you should be looking forward, right, in order to improve this, right? How do you bring the balance through this? That is where we need to actually understand, how does this chemical released in the brain. Sometimes people cannot release dopamine, they don't get a kick at all when they complete something. Yeah, I completed this. Have you experienced people saying that no motivation, no inspiration, always mood swings? It's an imbalance of these chemicals in the brain, right? How do we bring that balance? How do we bring that constant positivity in the brain? So these are the three aspects that you got to keep in mind. Number one is nutritional aspects of brain. You need to understand what is the building block of this brain, because the quality of this brain depends on what type of ingredients that you put in your daily meals. Do you put crap? Do you put more of junk? Do you put good nutrition, right? Do you give good oxygen to the brain? Because brain thrives on water, oxygen and good nutritions like vitamins, minerals and all of that particular thing, and also detoxification. What is unwanted, it needs to be thrown out, right? So then the nutritional aspects is taken care to increase the memory power, to increase the brain power, right? The second thing is that you got to take care of your mind aspects. What does that mean? What is your brain frequency? Is your brain frequency is in giga mode, or alpha, beta or theta? Which frequency that what you are resonating with? Because the calmer the brain frequency, you will be able to channelize with higher level consciousness. And that's so, so important, because if your mind is thinking too much, if your mind is going here and there, here and there, here and there, you lose focus. All right, so that is where it is so important to take care of the mental aspects or mind aspects. We need to take care of the nutritional aspect, what goes inside on building the physical brain. The second thing we got to take care of is mind aspects. So can you actually do more of meditation? Can you actually calm your brain? Can you keep that brain in so calmed way that you will be able to see the things the way it is? Because mind aspects is as simple as this. Can you see the depth of the well if the water is disturbed? You cannot, right? The more cleaner the water and the more calm the water, you can actually see the depth of the well. So same thing, you cannot do something with the brain or mind to actually make your mind cleaner and calmer. You got to let it go like that. Just keep it calm for some moment. So then you are taking care of it. Could, you can call it as meditation, or you can call it as just being in the present moment, or getting yourself connected to the nature, whatever it is that actually calms, right? So that is very, very important. The third aspect of the brain that is very, very important is the method aspects, right? Because brain works in certain ways, and that is where we teach people on a skill called as memory magic, right? Like how do you increase that memory? Like it feels like a magic to others, but you are actually using a lot of methods, right? And one of the things that what I have learned in my life is that this nutritional aspects, mind aspects, no other people can do, only you can do it. Method aspects is where you can learn from mentors. There are a lot of things that what you can do today. That is where I'm coming YouTube live, right? You can see that. So every week or alternative views, I am actually coming on YouTube live whenever we are having our master classes. If you are not part of our master classes, you can also join our upcoming master classes on specifically improving your communication or memory or various different aspects of life to take it forward to the next level, you can actually click on the links below in the description to actually register yourself if you have not been part of the master classes as well, where we go 90 minutes deeper on this aspect to take your journey to that next level, right? And if you have actually liked this particular session and coming in YouTube live, please also subscribe to the channel and also click on that like button, and also share it with your friends and colleagues who could get benefited from this. I would look forward to see you in the next YouTube live. Till then, be extraordinary. Thank you so much, everyone.